What's up everyone, this is Edouard Maleix, co-founder of MG Poland, JS Poland, AngularMaster.dev and AngularLearn.pl. Welcome back to the Angular Master podcast. Today we are hosting two amazing experts, Enea Jahollari, Google developer expert, and Edouard Maleix, Nx and NestJS enthusiast from pushbase.io. Hi Edouard, hi Enea. For those who don't know you yet, please tell us about yourself and what you do.
I'm Edouard Maleix. I'm an independent consultant and software developer. I'm focused on server-side JavaScript and TypeScript development. So Node.js is my bread and butter. I'm also focused on application security. I'm not stuck to those technology, though I'm also exploring other programming languages and frameworks. Like lately I've been digging into Go. I even worked a bit with Erlang. You might know about Erlang. I don't know if you are exposed to that. Well, that's an infamous programming language mainly used in very efficient broker like RabbitMQ. In fact, that's why I worked on Erlang recently for a RabbitMQ plugin for a customer. I spend lots of time working and promoting Nx and NestJS and share my experiences as a trainer and I would say a wannabe author. And so for the past 5 years, I've been shipping many application libraries for NestJS, for open source project or customers, mainly managing Nx monorepository. This is what led me to want to advocate those technologies. And that's also what led me to meet Michael Latki from Pushbase a few years ago. And then, well, more recently to start working together and even organizing NestJS meetup in Vienna. And the first event should come pretty soon in June. Hopefully it will be a great occasion to meet and gather NestJS aficionados.
Sounds amazing. Enea, how about you?
I'm Enea Jahollari. I'm based in Albania and I'm a Google developer expert for Angular. Also a software engineer working at Pushbase. I can say I'm passionate about building Angular applications that scale and of course that are efficient. And I also enjoy sharing my knowledge through public speaking, trainings, writing a lot of blog posts, and of course, tweeting a lot on X or previously Twitter.
Could you start by explaining the core concept of Nx and why it's particularly effective for managing Angular projects?
Absolutely. So at its core, Nx is a smart build system designed for monorepos, but also single projects, I'd say. So think of it as a single repository housing multiple applications and libraries. And in my opinion, Nx excels at managing complex projects, especially those built with Angular, by optimizing dependency management, streamlining builds, and of course, promoting code sharing.
What could be interesting to know for those who don't know Nx is that it originated from Angular. Originally, Nx was built on top of some of the Angular CLI and was built to overcome some of these limitations. And what started with something specific to Angular in monorepo grew to something a bit larger and added lots of concept and tooling which are totally absent in the Angular CLI. And maybe I want to talk a bit more about those like project, graph, and task pipeline.
Yeah, before I go into that, I'd like to say that just like Vite came out from Vue community, Nx came out from Angular community, let's say. And on Nx part, yeah, we can say that it has tools like project graph and task pipelines, which, allow you to, let's say, better understand and manage these dependencies. And also it has generators and executors, which, make code generation and task execution, let's say, easily automatable. And of course, they also enforce best practices using those things.
How does Nx enhance the efficiency of development workflow compared to traditional tools?
In traditional workflows, rebuilding the entire project for small changes can be time-consuming. Nx, on the other hand, analyzes dependencies and only rebuilds the affected parts of the code base. So this means faster feedback cycles and a much smoother development experience.
Well, we can talk about also the task caching mechanism, we could also talk about distributed task execution. That's leverage NX Cloud Agent to distribute tasks running in the CI and run all of them in parallel in a smart way, so that avoids any conflict. It distributes evenly all the tasks, the output and data between all the agents. And that can be really beneficial when you have large code base with many projects to test, or lint or any common task that all your projects share. This concept, this tool, distributed task execution is really very helpful. And that's, I guess, one of the big business of NX. And that's how they can also make money with their business at some point.
Can you delve into the features of NX that support scalable workspace architectures? How does this benefit large projects?
So NX promotes a modular approach where you break down your project into smaller and reusable libraries. And of course, this promotes code reusability, improves maintainability, and allows teams to work independently on different parts of the system without stepping on each other's toes. And I think this, of course, supports that scalable workspace architecture.
I think we could also say that it supports in scalability in two ways, tech-wise and organization-wise. Organization-wise, it has, let's say, lots of opinion on how the code base should be organized, how your workspace should be organized. And it provides some consistent project structure and convention that you can share across all the workspace. And then you don't need to reinvent the wheel every time that you create a new project and every time a new developer on board. Just need to follow that convention, and you don't need to question and second guess the patterns or the convention in the given project. There are also many ways to automate creation of new module, and those can also follow the convention enforced at the workspace level. We can also mention how the migration can be easily managed with NX. You can build your own also account on NX maintainer made migration script, so that every time you want to update NX or dependencies managed by NX, you can run those migration scripts that will automatically upgrade all your project configuration, eventually upgrade your code if needed. And that's very appreciated when you are a developer and you spend way less time during the upgrade process. Unless you like it, but I think you have to be a bit crazy to like it. That can only be appreciated. And that migration process also help for large scale refactoring. Technically, as we already mentioned, but maybe you want to go on with that, Enea. Talking about the project graph and task pipeline, that's probably interesting.
One of the key features of NX is its project graph, which visually represents all the dependencies in the workspace. And of course, this helps developers understand the code base's interconnections and see the changes impact in real time. And visualizing dependencies allows teams to identify and resolve issues early, such as circular dependencies or tightly coupled modules. Also, there is distributed task execution, which allows for parallelization and distribution of tasks across multiple machines. Of course, this ensures that tasks run in the right order and in parallel, by also preserving developer ergonomics, as if all tasks were running on a single machine. And this is inspired a bit by Bazel, which is used in Google. And this feature enhances the efficiency and scalability of CI/CD pipelines and consolidating terminal output errors and files in one place.
There are also, but I guess we will talk about it maybe later when we talk maybe a bit more about task caching, but there are also some tools to improve how much you can benefit from caching and how much you can also optimize your cache usage.
What role does task caching play in NX? And how does it improve development speed for recurring tasks?
Task caching is like having a memory for your build system. So NX remembers the result of previous tasks and reuses them when you run the same task again with the same inputs. So this means you don't have to wait for the entire build process in order to complete every time. if you didn't change anything or changed only a little part of it. So this will save you available time and, of course, development time and CI time.
It's also worth mentioning that task caching cannot be only local, so that only your machine has its own cache and state. But this cache, and that's when it becomes interesting. The cache can be shared across different machines. It could be shared between team members, or even further, between team members and CI runners. And that's where it becomes really great, because if you have that cache shared with all those machines and user, you have more chances to create an input in the cache, but also to hit the cache. And then it benefits all the members that share this cache. And once again, it's also very effective for larger teams who have many projects, many tasks for each of those projects, and many time spent in the CI runners.
You are now listening to the Angular Master Podcast by NG Poland. Listen, code, repeat all you need to know to become a super Angular developer. Make sure to hit the subscribe button and drop us a cool comment. And don't miss out our second show, the JavaScript Master Podcast, where you find tons of fantastic JavaScript topics. Discuss the benefits of selectively running tasks affected by changes in a PR using Nx. How does this feature save time and resources?
Well, Nx affected command is a powerful tool that allows you to only run tasks that are directly or indirectly affected by the changes in your pull request, let's say. And of course, this saves time and resources by avoiding unnecessary builds and tests. And for example, if you modify a specific library in your workspace or monorepo, Nx will only run the tasks like build tasks and test tasks related to that library and its dependents, rather than the entire project. And of course, this makes it very efficient.
Nx is relying on Nx to determine what files have been changing in a given PR. And of course, you can modify the base and the head for the comparison. And based on the nature of the changes, so based on the file that you updated for that given base and head comparison, Nx will determine what are the affected projects. And for those affected projects, you can run the corresponding task being test, lint, build as the most common examples. And that can be also very helpful for deployment. Let's say that you have a PR where you change only application A, but not application B. In that case, it might not make sense to deploy application B in that case, because no change were made either in that app or the dependencies of that app. So in that case, you just avoid wasting resource and time and only go straight to the point and deploy application A.
Could you discuss the significance of using buildable libraries and incremental building?
So the whole point of buildable libraries and incremental building is to build as less as possible. So buildable libraries are precompiled, let's say, artifacts that can be easily consumed by other part of the projects, just like normal libraries. And the thing is, by having them as buildable, we avoid rebuilding them every time that we build the main application. And this will save considerable time.
Usually it will always be much more efficient to use incremental building and buildable libraries. However, in a cold state, so when there are no precompiled artifacts, the build might be a little bit slower until you have your pre-built artifact. And in that case, that's where it becomes really beneficial and can be up to 10 times faster than a build without incremental building and buildable libraries, where you would in-chain build everything at once. Once again, very beneficial in local development, but more in CI/CD pipelines.
What advanced CI capabilities does Nx offer, and how do these features streamline the CI process for teams?
Well, Nx comes with built-in support for distributed task execution and distributed caching, which significantly can speed up your CI pipelines. And also it provides tools to analyze and optimize CI workflows, which ensure that you're only running the necessary tasks and avoiding redundant builds. For For example, you can have, or you can use Nx Cloud, where you can, let's say, track CI pipeline execution to check the status and logs of tasks in real time. And this will, of course, provide immediate insight into the build process. Additionally, Nx Cloud offers analytics to help teams analyze average CI execution durations on a daily count of executions. And this data helps identify bottlenecks and optimize the CI workflow, of course. And this will ensure continuous improvements and maintaining high efficiency.
That's the Nx Cloud view. Even historically, it's also pretty useful to have all the view of your past run and see the progress in the good or the wrong direction of how slower or faster your pipeline have been executed can be satisfying or quite the opposite and alarming. Also, as we already quickly mentioned that earlier, but maybe we can dig on that one. On the CI, you have that distributed task execution. And as much as you can do it by yourself, you can, let's say for the GitHub Actions, because that's where I have, me personally, some experience. You can speed up your own agents, which are in fact separate jobs. But doing this can be a bit difficult, to say the least, because using the right amount of machines, synchronizing the machines so that they stop and start at the right moment can come with its own set of challenges. And that's where using the cloud agents could also simplify the workflow, because then the CI workflow, at least on the GitHub workflow YAML file, it takes a big diet. It becomes super simpler to read, super simpler to manage and update, and it becomes more efficient. So that's one thing to try for those who still hesitate to use the cloud agent from Nx.
Can you explain how Nx's command line interface CLI, executors, generators, and project crystals tasks inference streamline the development process?
Nx CLI, as Edouard said in the beginning, came out from Angular CLI, but now it's even more powerful. We can say that it automates common tasks like creating new applications, new libraries, components, services, pipes, and every other thing. Also end-to-end tests. And the ability to generate code based on best practices and established patterns is a huge time saver. It also provides commands for running tests, building projects, and even deploying applications.
We could also add that all the commands, at least most of the commands that you can use from the CLI, can also be used via IDE extensions. So I personally don't like much the VS Code extension. I really prefer the CLI because I think it's more reproducible. I know many people prefer a good UI, so that might be good also to know that there is a really well-made VS Code extension. I don't know for other editor because I don't have experience with JetBrains or so forth.
Yes, there is one for it.
Yeah, there is one. But what's even more important about the CLI is how it relies on the plugins. The Nx plugins is, I think, the essence of what make Nx extensible, because you can first create your own plugins. You have tooling that allow you to scaffold an existing plugin workspace that will contain all the boilerplate code and structure to get started. And usually what plugin contain is a set of executor. So a schema that contain the option that you can pass to the CLI for that given executor, and some implementation that will represent the task to run by this executor. The generators, like Enea said, are really code that will generate some code. So they have the same logic. They have some JSON schema that will be validated and that will provide some options for the CLI, and that will, let's say, generate a new project or extend an existing project with some new task. It will turn some boilerplate into something automatable. And all those building blocks rely on the Nx dev kit, which is an internal library from Nx that you can then use in your own plugin to avoid also re-implementing some things that are very common in Nx plugins, like modifying a project or accessing the tree or accessing the project graph or so on and so forth. So that made a bit of a noise. I guess they made a big marketing effort with that project crystal. I guess just the name already. Yeah, indeed, I don't know where it came up from, and I don't know why they made such effort for that piece, that specific technical piece. I wonder if they would do it for all the upcoming big changes. But what it does, in a nutshell, is to allow you to infer tasks based on some existing configuration file. So let's say that you have a project, a library or an application that contains some jest configuration. So for your test, for your unit test or integration test or whatever, you could have, and it already exists, an Nx plugin that will check for all your given project a pattern using some globs and checking if they are the corresponding conventional jest config files. So like usually the jest config.js or jest.config.ts or all the conventional namings. If the plugin finds that configuration file, it will automatically configure the related task for your project. And this is a massive change, because one thing that is still a bit boilerplate with Nx for each project is that you, until Nx 18, you still need to manually declare your task. So usually it comes up with reasonable defaults, but still it has to be reproduced and maintained in all your project. And when you have dozens or hundreds of libraries and applications, that adds up this maintenance work. And this is where this project crystal is super handy, because with this inference, it automates this work. It's a bit black magic at first because you have nothing declared explicitly. But in the end, once you are aware of this work, it's just make life way easier.
How does Nx assist and managing dependencies and interaction between different libraries within a workspace?
Nx provides a clear and structured way to define dependencies between projects and libraries. And also it includes tools to visualize the dependency graph, which can help to identify, as we said, potential circular dependencies or other issues. And it uses some ESLint rules. First one is Nx dependency checks, which helps maintain and accurate and up-to-date list of dependencies for JavaScript and TypeScript projects. The other one is Nx enforce module boundaries, which allows teams to define strict rules for accessing resources between different projects in the repository. This rule enforces clear module boundaries by preventing unplanned cross-dependencies and ensuring the code base remains modular and maintainable.
Yeah, regarding the dependency checks rule, the first one that you mentioned, this one is a pretty recent addition and is really great when you have to ship libraries or application. When you have some libraries that contain dependencies inside the Nx workspace, this will take care of managing transitive dependencies eventually. It will take care of ensuring that your code contain the dependencies that it declares in package.json. Otherwise, it would throw ESLint error. And for the application side, it allows to ensure that you have all your statically detected dependencies added to the package.json. But there is a bit a caveat with that approach, and that's due to the way Nx detects dependencies itself, because it can only do with what it can see. So it can infer those dependencies based on static imports or dynamic imports. And this way it can know that your project will depend on those packages, so it can add them in package.json. But sometimes you have some edge cases. I think of one right now. Some people will probably joke at me later on, but I will assume when you use TypeORM and with, let's say, the Postgres driver, TypeORM is an explicit dependency. It can be detected by Nx, no problem. But PG, so the PG driver, the NPM package, will not be detected because it's not imported anywhere in your code. So it will have a hard time to know that you need the PG in the package.json. So there are some workarounds for that. Either import globally the package at the top of your main file, or create a dummy file that contains all your implicit dependencies or create your own executor that will wrap the logic from the dependency checks and add an extra layer of implicit dependency detection. And that's also something to worth to mention, is that between projects, there is also that notion of explicit and implicit dependencies. You could have sometimes across multiple languages. So let's say you could have a JavaScript or TypeScript project and a Golang project, who would both depend on a library in your workspace, containing some JSON schema. The JavaScript project could import it. That would be no problem, but that could be more problematic for the Go part. It could consume the JSON schema, but not in a way that NX can detect it. And in that case, you can use a statement in the project JSON file. So that's an artifact that is present in all NX project, and you can declare that this JSON schema library is an implicit dependency of that Go library. And this way it becomes, explicit in the end. And then NX can include it in the project graph and include it in the change detection.
How can teams effectively use NX's visualization tools to understand and manage their project architecture?
As we said, NX provides powerful visualization tools, and that is really powerful and plays a crucial role when onboarding new developers, because by giving them a visual representation of the code base, new team members can quickly understand the project's architecture and dependencies. This, of course, will accelerate their learning curve and integration into the team, because they can just, for example, focus on only some parts of the repo and not on all of it. And for example, the project details view accessible via NX, show projects and then project name. By using this command, we can see, let's say, some in-depth insight into, let's say, the project that we care about. And this, of course, will make it easier to manage and maintain them, even more useful when task inference is enabled.
I need to bounce on what you just said, Enea. That's the project details view. I think it was added recently since the project restore, because it became a bit difficult to know what tasks are automatically added to your project. And I guess they added this view so that you can see, which tasks were automatically added by the project restore and the task inference plugins that you could have integrated at your in your workspace. So that became really, I guess, a necessity to also add up on the global project view. It's too bad that we don't have a screen sharing or something like that, because seeing it is probably better than trying to word it. But it's like a big tree that can selectively show all the project that you have, and it shows all the relationship, all the edges are the relation between your project. So of course, when you have hundreds of libraries and dozens of applications, you cannot do much with the view, but you can filter and focus on given libraries and application and see the relationship between a set of libraries, or based on a tag filtering condition. And you also have the task pipeline view, where you can also see dependencies, not only between code, but also between tasks. You could see that when you run build for app A, you could see that it would trigger build for lib A, B, Z, X, and so on and so forth. And it can also show you all that task pipeline, and seeing it visually is priceless. So that's really a very useful set of tools, those UIs, even more to get familiar with a new workspace that you don't know yet.
In terms of project management, how does NX facilitate better collaboration between developers working on different aspects of a project?
So NX modular architecture encourages a clear separation of concerns, which naturally leads to better collaboration. And each team can focus on their own area of expertise without worrying about breaking other parts of the system. The shared workspace and common tooling provided by NX also foster collaboration. Developers can easily share code, run tests, and build the entire project using a consistent set of commands. And this common ground simplifies, let's say, also onboarding new team members and ensures that everyone follows the same procedures. reducing misunderstanding and errors. And of course, additionally, NX tooling supports best practices out of the box by providing a standardized way of working that aligns with industry standards.
I don't have much to add because it sums up and it all adds up to how you can enforce your convention in NX, and I guess that's the root of how it can be beneficial for team, because there is no second guessing. You just follow convention, and then you have lots of validators and tools that will enforce those rules, and I guess that makes things less.
Or to sum it up, it would be consistent environment, shared libraries, and integrated CI/CD.
How does NX handle the integration of multiple technology stacks, such as combining Gradle and JavaScript libraries in a single workspace?
NX plugin system allows you to add support for different technologies. So it's independent from technology that you use. For example, the NX Gradle plugin enables you to seamlessly integrate Gradle-based projects into your NX workspace. And NX then can manage dependencies between different projects, regardless of the technology stack, as Edouard said before with Go and the TypeScript project.
I guess it just started to be advertised, this polyglot support, since NX added that official support for Gradle. But I guess it did not stop the community. It did not refrain the community from building their own plugins. And those who absolutely wanted to have Go project in their NX repo did not wait for an official plugin to do it. Same for Java, in fact, for Java frameworks. That was already done by NX Rocks. And that logic is true for many different tooling, not just to support multiple programming languages, but also to manage releases, to manage publishing on NPM, to manage deployment on any platform. I wrote a plugin to deploy on Heroku myself because there was nothing that existed. Just if you don't have it, you have some convention, you build your own plugin, and you add your support to tailor NX to your needs. And that's really where it's true that it's really extensible, because the plugin system is really very rich and allow you to also add support for different frameworks that are not yet officially supported.
Edouard, as a backend developer, how have you integrated NX into your development process for JS and TS projects?
It started some time ago, the first experience, but since then, I think it's hard to not include it in backend projects, even in small scale and with small team, because of all the things that we said before. So to avoid repeating myself, or maybe to summarize what we said, all the combination of definition of the module boundaries and declaring and representing all your business rules and your domains with the ESLint module boundaries rule is one great thing that I really love from the beginning, and I still try to push for companies and developers who are new to it. The affected, obviously, which also was a mind blower, even though once you know about it, it's a bit of a simple recipe, but first time that you come across it and you did not use that, you think, how come I could not use it and not know about it before? Because I'm going to save so much time, and my CI is going to save so much time. The code sharing capacity, so that you can also control and selectively share code between your backend and front end, while still being able to avoid clashes. So that let's say you have an Angular project and an NestJS project, your NestJS project could import NestJS packages, but it should definitely not import Angular packages. And this can also be configured so that it does not happen. So all those safeguards are really a great thing. All these tools that allow to represent your domain design is, I think, really, really great for those who really like to organize things. The CI toolings obviously are very helpful, and I always get make benefits of them. And one thing I've been using a lot lately is the NX release built-in plugin. So I guess until now, one of the most popular plugin to release or manage releases and trigger changelog and versioning is the JS Category Sember plugin. I guess might know about it. Maybe Enea, you know about it. I think it's someone from works with Pushbase as well who contribute to it. But since then, NX finally took the lead and built their own NX release CLI. And it's a very, very cool tool to manage releases. So it still has some hiccups, but it can really blend into your setup. And when you have to manage releasing in your libraries or your application, that would be the go-to, because it can very granularly manage and configure how you bump your version, how you're going to generate your changelogs, and what is coming after that. So how do you release and publish the code? That's something I tend to use a lot lately.
What challenges did you face when initially implementing Nx in your projects, and how did you overcome them?
I guess the first challenge is to be, or to not to be overwhelmed, because all those concepts that comes at your face, if you did not work with monorepository tooling or monorepository at all, it's really lots of concept and tool to digest. And I guess that was the hard part at the beginning. I remember for the anecdote, the first time I got to know NX was when I first time collaborated with Pushbase, but I was in a company as an employee, and Michael was with Julian and Kay from Pushbase. They taught us NX, how to use it, how to take benefit of affected, how to configure the module boundaries. And I guess that's what's very helpful, is to find someone who can hold your hands, guide you, and help you into that process. Because if you jump into that pit, I mean, if you have time to experiment and to have to make an experiment that turn wrong, then I guess go for it. If you have some pet project, I guess sometimes that's pretty good to jump into the void and feel that way. But if it's for a professional project, I guess it's better to train or to get someone who assists you and who has the experience to guide you through to the setup of your NX workspace.
How I see it is that if you never have, let's say, created a big project that was having issues with scaling, then you don't see NX as useful. But if you have, let's say, a project that is failing to scale because of too many developers working on it, or let's say no conventions were set in the beginning, then the moment that you try to add NX to it, it's going to be a little bit difficult, because you will have to get used to NX patterns and conventions. But after you get past that by following tutorials, or initially I learned it by the book that Victor Safkin published, I think, since NX was just NX console or something called like that. I don't remember well. So let's say I wrote a really good documentation and created really good courses for using NX with, say, React, Angular, also a backend Express. I think the moment that you go the NX way, you're pretty sure let's say, project will become maintainable again in pretty much less time than could be possible with other tools, I guess.
And from your experience, what are the most common pitfalls teams encounter when adopting NX, and how can they be avoided?
Well, one common pitfall is overcomplicating the workspace structure. Teams should start, in my opinion, with a simple structure and gradually evolve it as their project grows. Because if you just set the architecture beforehand, but the project takes a different direction, then your architecture probably won't serve you. And another mistake is not fully utilizing NX's CLI and generators, which can automate repetitive tasks and streamline development. And of course, one common pitfall is underestimating the learning curve and not fully leveraging NX's modular architecture. So teams can avoid this by investing time in training, following best practices, and of course, gradually integrating Nx into their workflow.
Could you share a case study or example where Nx significantly impacted a project's delivery time and overall success?
Yes. So my last project that I worked on, say it was a big company which was, was not using Nx at all. So the whole, projects were using shared libraries that were part of the internal NPM registry. And the teams were having issues with, releasing these libraries or testing these libraries, or having issues with tests, for example, because they needed to be unit tested. But if you release a library on an internal NPM, then the other application will have to go install it, check if tests run, then check the, the UI tests and any kind of other tests that needed to be done. So all this time was, wasted, because there was not a streamlined process. And what we did with push-based is that we started to integrate Nx. So we first created one, monorepo with one of their core libraries. And gradually we started to migrate their applications into the monorepo. So the moment that we had to, release some kind of changes, we would immediately see what would break. So we wouldn't lose any time waiting for every other project to check if things passed, but we just immediately see what broke and we could fix it immediately. And one other way we did that is by also writing schematics to migrate code. By migrating code automatically, we could save a lot of development time, because now developers don't have to go and change everywhere where some, component method would, be different, or outputs and inputs. But just by writing schematics, we could, change the whole company projects that were using that shared component. And that's, I think, what makes Nx a really good tool for big companies and, companies that have a lot of projects and shared libraries.
I have also a story, but that's not exactly the same context. It was more it's a customer, a bit a smaller company, but very old project that I've been working on. And it was originally an audit and making an evaluation of whether it's worth it to move from Express to NestJS. And that evolved from just this base requirement to moving directly to Nx, because that was such an accumulation of many shared code, of many pieces that were added on top of each other for the past 7 years, that there was really some monstrosity. Even if they would recognize themselves hearing that podcast, I think they would recognize it. They would not take it bad. And what I think was really great is when we started to plan the migration, how by using the Nx and mainly the model boundaries, how using this rule and how we could split all the shared pieces, all the modules that are part of a given business domain, and split them in their corresponding group using the ESLint model boundaries. We removed so much mess, and things became, I think, way clearer for all of them. And they do not have that import hell of so many nested import and a code which was impossible to test. Now things became, I think, really clear for them. And what was pretty good is that the migration, so which is still pending at the moment, is taking way less time than expected. And I guess that's because we have all those conventional rules that guides us in that path. And one thing that they said, and I think I'll remember it for a long time, I guess it was pretty funny and a bit flattering, is that they said, and they are Italian, they moved from a Fiat Cinquecento to a Ferrari Roma. So I guess that says a lot. I guess that says a lot from their impression. I really don't invent it, really. I think they could come here and testify. So I guess that witness a bit the turn of events and the satisfaction that it can bring if you follow the rules, I guess.
Yeah, one thing I just forgot to mention is that before adopting Nx, the build times of the project were incredibly slow. And of course, it, let's say, affected our development velocity. But after migrating to Nx and leveraging task caching and incremental builds, we saw dramatic improvement in build times, of course, which translated to a faster development cycle and quicker time to production. So we would be able to commit some code, test it directly, and easier to send it to production.
What are some best practices for setting up and maintaining an NX workspace to ensure optimal performance and ease of use?
Well, as we said before, keeping the workspace structure simple and well organized, even though it's ever evolving, like you never know what's coming next to your project if you're in the monorepo. The other one is leveraging NX's generators and CLI to possibly automate every task. The other one is to have clear module boundaries and dependency management.
Make the most of task caching. Take a good time to define all the inputs that a project should take for caching, and that can take a bit of time, but that really pays off to gradually check. By default, there are some saying default, but sometimes you might want to check your workspace configuration and ensure that everything is tweaked correctly, so that all the NX parts are working at the best possible. Because just using on the default sometimes will not guarantee that it performs the best possible in your cases. And I guess it's important, like we said, to educate that. Of course, everyone will not in a team have the same implication in a project, but those who will come to manage the workspace rules will manage to include or not include the plugin, should train, should get informed, should be educated to NX and should be involved a bit in the ecosystem. Those rules, those conventions should be documented.
Looking towards the future, what developments can we expect in NX to further support and enhance web development practices?
I believe we will see continued innovation in NX. It's not stopping, particularly in areas like distributed task execution, cloud caching, and of course supporting new technologies. We can also, I think, expect to see improvements in the visualization tools and overall developer experience. And Project Crystal is a step in the right direction, I'd say.
I guess there is lots of work in the improvement of all the tools that they are deploying, because that goes at such a pace that it must become a burden to maintain all those official plugins for all the build system, for all the test system, plus, yes, the Project Crystal, the NX release CLI. So I guess just maintaining all those existing tools is probably taking a lot of effort. I would not know what will be the future, what will be the big next surprise. I tried to ask for it for internal information, but I had no reply. Maybe that's because I had asked this a bit too spontaneously. I should have asked a bit earlier for insider tips. Maybe, Enea, you get some tips of what could be the new thing in development?
I haven't seen their PRs yet.
What people can expect from the workshop you have prepared for nglearn.pl?
Many of the concepts that we talked about, that will be an occasion to see them in practice, to see all the toolings in action. Because right now, all the words that we share, that's good, but that does not help much to apply in your next project or in your current project. So I guess that's what we aim to do, to show rules, tips, tricks on how to use NX in your Angular project.
Yeah, so everything, including task caching, module boundaries. We'll see some productivity, code quality, and consistency tools we can use. We'll see a little bit on workspace performance, so we have it as fast as possible. And of course, general ideas on scalable workspace architectures.
Can you share a recent personal achievement that you are particularly proud of?
The library that I work on most, NG extension, just reached 10,000 weekly downloads.
Wow. Congratulations.
I'd say it's a bit technical, but non-technical. I can say that I've been accepted in almost all the Europe Angular conferences and I will participate in all of them this year, and that's a really great personal achievement for me.
I guess that could be the fact that I finally jumped back in the freelancer wagon. So I moved in Vienna almost 5 years ago, and fortunately I don't really speak German. I mean, I can say sprechen Sie auf English. That's usually my favorite sentence, so that we can speak to English. So it limited me a bit to move to freelancing and to go back to be independent. So that's what I did finally, officially full time in January. And it also led me to do lots of things I wanted to do. So to finally take the time to share my learnings. So to write articles finally. I had so many ideas that I accumulated that I wanted to write and talk about. Now I have finally the occasion to do it. So that's, I think, what I'm happy and proud of for this year and for the moment.
Who has been the most influential person in your professional or personal life?
I'd go with professional life. So when I started tweeting on, let's say, Angular stuff on Twitter, let's say I was just doing it for fun. But there was a moment where Pavel from Angular team, let's say, quoted me and said, if you want to have, let's say, great articles or tweets about Angular in your timeline or something like that, I don't remember it well. It was 2 or 3 years ago. He said, follow Enea. And from that moment, it was like a second job for me to, work on that part, like always publish new stuff and, help the Angular development community to become better.
My influence, not really from the technical landscape, because that's not really where I come from originally. But I guess I could make the classic of mentioning my father, I guess, for lots of advice on life, relationships, and how to believe and behave. So yeah, I guess that's general rules that I apply and readapt and tailor for my own needs. So yeah, I guess that's an occasion to speak in good about him. So I take the opportunity.
What are some of the lesser known but valuable skills that you think are crucial for success in tech?
Adaptability and continuous learning. The tech landscape is always evolving rapidly, and the ability to learn new technologies or programming languages, and of course adapting to changing project requirements all the time is essential. So embracing a growth mindset and being open to continuous learning will set you apart.
I totally agree with that. And to add on it, I'd say that you need to achieve what Enea said, you need a bit of passion, patience as well, because without it and without the will to go through the failure or the moment where you feel bad, because when you learn something new, sometimes that's just what happens. You are at the bottom of the learning curve. And I guess also smart decision making, picking the right tools to bet on that will drive you up.
How do you approach learning new technologies or frameworks in the ever-evolving field of software development?
So I can say that if I want to learn a new technology, first I see what problems does it solve that the current, let's say, programming language that I know doesn't solve. For example, if you want to work with AI now, a lot of libraries are written in Python. So if you want to learn Python, check what you can do with it. For example, on the AI side, there's a lot of tutorials on YouTube, but also paid courses on Udemy, I say, that are really good at that. So that's it. Check what you can do with it and try doing it. And don't fall for, let's say, staying in always learning mode using courses, but get out of that cycle by start doing something yourself. Learn, but by doing mostly.
Yes, there is I think in most of us, a very strong temptation to know everything, or at least a lot, and accumulate. And I think indeed that's what's the most difficult is which one to pick, which horse to bet on, and which one will have the most leverage. Because unless we learn something just for the fun, and maybe some people, or we want to have a little budget for fun learnings, but if it comes about work, then I guess it's about the leverage, what you learn, how much it will repay in the upcoming months or years. So I guess that's how I pick a new framework or language or whatever tool. It's with that mindset. How much will it pay off, and how much help I can provide with that knowledge that no one can already provide, or few.
How do you stay motivated during challenging projects?
If project is challenging and let's say motivation goes down, what I do is think that after a week or a month, I know that I will have it finished. So thinking about the future, the good future that's coming, at least I know that this thing cannot bring my motivation down at this point. And of course, knowing that at any point I can just close the laptop and get out motivates me a lot.
I think usually challenges come in situation that has purposes. I mean, at least I speak for myself. When I usually end up in challenging situation, that's because I partially chose it or because the effort is worth it. So that's usually what I also try to picture, what's the value of that effort. And sometimes the challenge is also an occasion to reevaluate. Is it still worth continuing in that challenging situation? And in last resort, that's also good to go back in the past and check our experiences and see that the challenges are also the occasion where we sometimes build lots of experience, lots of knowledge, and that's because we persisted, that we were able to be knowledgeable about something specific. So it's looking at both past and future can help going through them and knowing if it's worth doing it.
What music do you listen while working, if any?
Well, I listen to a lot of Eminem, and after Eminem, I go to just listen folkloric music. So yeah, wow. From rap to folkloric music is drastic change, but hey, it works for me.
That's the question that's really uncover people's face. Now my turn then. Also lots of hip hop from the 90s, early 2000s, a bit mixed with electro, so like things like Brandon Jules, I'm really a sucker for it, or Grumps, a really great French artist, totally crazy, not doing things for the money, but giving a really great vibe. That's what I've been listening a lot for the past years, really putting a great mood, or could be also more generally some funk, some soul, some reggae, also a bit lately, anything that my mind is asking for, I try to give it.
If you weren't working in tech, what other profession would you like to try?
Farming, and I'm thinking of doing that also now as a side job, honestly.
Well, speaking of which, I would become a farmer, definitely, because I already spent part of my life working in landscape architecture, and I was doing some green walls in the best professional life. I know the pros and cons. I don't want to go back to it. I'm happy with the tech side of things, even though that could be nice now, maybe with all the learnings and the state of mind to apply it to something which is slowly evolving a professional field. But yeah, me personally, I don't have yet a clear perspective of what I would try. I made that professional switch something like 7 years ago. And I feel like I'm in the exact same place in right moment. So for the moment, I just enjoy that.
What's your favorite way to unwind after a busy day of coding?
Well, on my side, I close the laptop and go to the gym. That's it. I go someplace where I don't need to use my brain at all, but just do something else. And gym is, I think, the right place for me.
The sport is more a necessity than something that helped me or that I do by my will. It's more okay, that's the weekend, I have to do some exercise. To find out, I guess, more into, I love coffee for the best years, like really great specialty coffee. And during work as well, after work, I really love to discover new coffee, go at cafe places and dig into coffees like I could dig into vinyls, which was a thing in the past. I have a son also, and I love to play Lego with him. That's the moment for him to play Lego a lot. And sometimes I admit I buy some Lego for both of us, but it's a good reason to do it. And just walking in Vienna, in the woods, in the streets. Just love that city. So that's nice just to walk, I think.
Vienna is amazing city, yeah, so
Yeah, really.
definitely.
To that.
Last question, a book you could recommend to our listeners? Book or TV series? It can be technical or non-technical. It's up to you.
Oh, I just finished Young Sheldon. It's a TV series and it's really good. It makes you laugh. I like all the ironies and it's fun. It's also a fan. You can watch it with your family. It's really, I enjoy that.
I would suggest something in a different mood. Lately, my girlfriend or future wife suggested me a book called Man's Search for Meaning. And that has been a long time. I have not been reading something out of technical topics. And I've been really a big reader some years ago. And that was good to go back and get out of that bubble that we live in the tech. And so this is the story of Viktor E. Frankl, who was a psychotherapist, seems very famous, and who created his own current. And he lived the concentration camp, and he tells his story and how he managed to persist, finding a meaning in life and how to keep on living during all that book. And this journey was pretty inspiring and humbling, I guess. Enough to mark me and to want to mention it now.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for participating in today's podcast. It was a true pleasure to talk with you. See you soon at NG Learn and then at NG Poland at the beginning of November.
Thanks a lot
Thank
for
you,
the invitation.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.